Welcome to the Wilkinson Files, an independent review of the findings of Dr. Sarah Wilkinson's report into the circumstances surrounding the closure of the Church of England's Independent Safeguarding Board, closed by its own Archbishop's Council after less than 3 years in operation. Over 6 episodes, each lasting less than 10 minutes, we will examine one aspect of Dr. Wilkinson's findings, one per day, each day, displaying on screen the relevant references to those paragraphs where you can read for yourself what she has said. We will be releasing one episode each day over the next 6 days. We will not be referencing any other documents other than Dr. Wilkinson's report, except where she herself has specifically referred to other information which is already out there in the public domain. Each episode has been prepared by a team with experience in safeguarding, who have examined Dr. Wilkinson's report in great detail to extract key points and to summarise the considerable detail she has provided.
Hello, my name is Clive Billenness. I'm a lay member of the General Synod of the Church of England, and I'm a certified auditor with almost 30 years professional experience of auditing, and I'm also a qualified project and risk manager. I'm also a member of the Archbishop's Council Audit Committee, who are supposed to have oversight of the Independent Safeguarding Board. And as we mentioned in our previous episode concerning the setting up of the ISB, there were different perceptions about what was meant by independence. And so we've titled this episode, The War of Independence. The numbers of the paragraphs in Dr. Wilkinson's report which I'm referring to will appear on the screen below. As early as February 2022, Jasvinder Sangera, a member of the ISB, proposed to ask victims and survivors of church abuse what they understood independence would mean to them and how they would wish to see this working in practice. Also in February 2022, a paper was presented to the General Synod by the then ISB chair, Dr. Maggie Atkinson, explaining that the ISB had only moral authority and would be very limited in its abilities. Bearing in mind that the membership of the General Synod had changed in the autumn of 2021 following the normal elections, and that almost 2/3 of the members of the General Synod were newly elected and had limited knowledge of what might have transpired earlier in 2021 at the informal meeting of Synod, which we mentioned yesterday, this statement about the limited powers of the ISB caused some concern. A motion to Synod to disapprove of Dr. Atkinson's report for a number of reasons was introduced for debate, but this was halted when Synod member Canon Simon Butler, who had been a member of the Archbishop's Council during the period when the ISB was being established, moved a procedural motion to curtail debate, theoretically for up to the entire 5 years of the life of the new Synod. The motion was passed by a large majority, although it should be noted that both archbishops voted against the adjournment and wanted the debate to continue. There is a link to the voting record on the YouTube page for this video if you'd like to see who voted to curtail or continue the debate. In March 2022, the Church of England's National Safeguarding Group endorsed the view that only the ISB should set its own terms of reference for its work. This group then gave its support to those terms of reference, which are reproduced in full in Dr. Wilkinson's report. These terms of reference included procedures for the replacement of board members. They also made it clear that the Archbishop's Council could not direct its activity nor control what it said or published. Dr. Wilkinson states, however, that although there was an opportunity for the Archbishop's Council to approve these terms of reference, and it was stated to her in evidence that they were passed to the Secretary-General, Mr. William Nye, to be presented to the Archbishop's Council, this never happened. Mr. Nye subsequently conceded that they had taken their eyes off the ball when the terms of reference had been approved by a meeting of the National Safeguarding Group at which he had been present. Dr. Wilkinson lists multiple occasions when this document could have been brought to the attention of the Archbishop's Council, but it wasn't. And the effect of this was to create a limbo situation where the ISB members considered that they were working to terms of reference, which gave them considerable independence, but the Archbishop's Council had never formally acknowledged these, even though they knew that they were being drawn up. During 2022, the Archbishop of York proposed to the Dean of Christ Church, Oxford, Dr. Martin Percy, that the ISB should conduct an independent review into his complaints about his treatment during a safeguarding matter. Dr. Percy ultimately rejected this proposal on the grounds of not being satisfied that the ISB was independent of the Archbishop's Council. Dr. Wilkinson noted that the Archbishops and Dr. Percy had different ideas about what independence meant. Disputes about independence between Dr. Percy and the ISB continued through 2022, during which time Dr. Percy sued the ISB for legal costs he had incurred. The judge in the case ruled that the ISB had no legal personality, but awarded costs against Dr. Percy, even though the ISB was not a legal entity. The court would not consider to whom any costs would be paid. Ultimately, the ISB withdrew the order for costs. And in reviewing these events, Dr. Wilkinson considered that the term independent was used ambiguously by the ISB and the Archbishops, without any reference to either the ISB's terms of reference or the paper originally shared with the General Synod back in February 2021. She also considered that Dr. Percy's concern about the legal status of the ISB was reasonable because submissions made on behalf of the ISB were ambiguous, making it difficult for Dr. Percy to fully understand the manner in which the ISB's representation had been established or funded. In February 2023, the Advertising Standards Authority ruled that an advertisement for the recruitment of a business manager for the ISB improperly suggested that the ISB was currently independent of the Church of England. Meanwhile, during 2023, a dispute arose when the chair of the ISB's access to her official email account was reinstated following suspension over a series of complaints to the Information Commissioner about data breaches, apparently without the agreement of the ISB members, who wished to see the decision of the Information Commissioner before reaching a decision about the return of the chair. On the 9th of January, the ISB members informed the Secretary-General, Mr. Nye, that they consider the decision to reinstate the chair's email without their agreement was a direct threat to their independence. A paper was submitted to the Archbishop's Council by Mr. Nye for their meeting on the 23rd of January, but Dr. Wilkinson notes that this made no mention of a wish by the remaining members of the board to see the decision of the Information Commissioner. At this meeting, it was also noted that the ISB had never been seen as independent. At a subsequent meeting of the Archbishop's Council on the 20th of March 2023, Mr. Nye submitted a paper suggesting the creation of a community interest company to operate while a longer-term solution could be developed. The paper also noted that the ISB had been hindered by the lack of an independent legal status. The Archbishop's Council then resolved to appoint the chair of the National Safeguarding Panel as interim chair of the ISB. Dr. Wilkinson notes there was no prior consultation with the other members of the ISB about the appointment, nor was any reference made to the ISB's terms of reference as they applied to the appointment of board members. In her conclusions at the end of her report, Dr. Wilkinson comments that the name of the ISB caused confusion because the word independent was taken too literally by people. It also caused confusion between the ISB members and the Archbishop's Council itself. Dr. Wilkinson agrees with one person whom she interviewed that the Archbishops themselves could not articulate what independence meant in practical terms. Professor Alexis Jay has now been invited to make recommendations for forming a new independent safeguarding board for the Church of England. At the time of making this episode, her report is expected to be published shortly, and it's clear that the expectations of many people, including synod members and survivors of abuse, had expectations of the level of independence which the original architects of the plans for Phase 1 did not share. Had debate about the ISB not been curtailed in February 2022, it's possible that a greater appreciation of the constraints which would apply during Phase 1 might have been better understood, since the bishop with responsibility for safeguarding would have had an opportunity to respond. Similarly, Had the Archbishop's Council been shown a copy of the terms of reference for the ISB, which it had drawn up, the potential for confusion might have been lessened. What is clear is that there will be a challenge for whatever structure comes next to exercise the level of independence which is clearly expected from the various stakeholders. Today, we've looked at the differing perceptions of independence between the Archbishop's Council and the members of the ISB. Tomorrow, we will examine how the ISB was closed down in our next episode. So please join us tomorrow for end of part 1.